Hello, we are live coming from Melbourne, Australia. My name is Phil de Cruz and welcome to the Forge Forward podcast. Joined by me is our powerhouse himself, the Connection CEO, Courtney Smith.
Spirit fingers.
Spirit fingers, beautiful. A little jazz quote, one-liners that we're doing in the background here. Today we have a treat. We have a special guest, Mary Jenson from Empower Services. Say hi out there.
I can do spirit fingers too.
Beautiful.
I'm very well. Thanks for having me here, Phil and Courtney.
Absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. As we gather, at the Forge, we're focused on discussing cutting-edge innovations driving the industries forward. That's why we call it Forge. Forging forward, forging partnerships, forging relationships. That's all about the conference is about. We're only a week away.
Forge and forge for more. That's what we're all about, right?
I think by the end of November, I'm going to be sick of saying the word forge, but I think I've said it 4,000 times already. But that's good. But I'll start off by saying, Mary, can you tell me a bit about your journey and what experiences have led you, to the insights that you'll be sharing at the Forge conference?
Absolutely. I moved out of home when I was 15 and I started in accounts payable and accounts receivable. And we started with ledger books. Back in accounting at that time, you wrote all the line entries into ledger books, and the accounts payable and the accounts receivable ledger books were green, and then you ruled them off, and then you transferred those at the end of the month into the general ledger, which were red books. And then I heard of this company called EDS, Electronic Data Systems, and I heard they were going to use computers to do accounting, and that excited me. If I talk about myself personally, I've always been, and I think I always will be, an early adopter. I like to hear what's coming, test it out, get in the forefront of it, and start utilizing, especially technology. Through my accounting career, I took a computer system from Australia into New Zealand. Back then, New Zealand, I think it was 1993. And New Zealand was still manual over there. So manual sales books and manual processing. And we took the ERP system from Australia. We upgraded to a new system in Australia. So we took the old one over to New Zealand. So I've always been at the forefront of new technology, being able to utilize things differently. And, people are really freaked about AI at the moment, but it's a new technology. It's a new technology that we get to use and we get to play with. Before accounting, people used to be transactional and make entries. Now that we use computers to do that transactional make entries, the accountants can actually be pivotal in businesses to help decision making, to use data that they can now grab live instead of 28 days behind, or even worse, quarterly or yearly, depending on the size of the company and how often you looked at your accounts. You can use the data to figure out what works in the businesses, what doesn't work in their businesses, and make changes in real time. I love this story out of, I think it's out of the 4 Disciplines of Execution, the book. There's this story about whether you're watching a game where the scoreboard's visible to watching a game where there's no scoreboard. In the last minutes of the game, when you know that you've got to make those 2 points to win, the game on the field is completely different to a scrimmage where you don't know the score.
Yeah, wow. And obviously the crowd as well, the electric nature of something that's going to come down to the wire. Incredible. You actually made me smile, because I was thinking about, and I'm a visual guy, right? So as you were talking about these ledger books, I was visualizing that in my head. And I'm thinking, imagine the kids if we told them they had to use a dial-up phone, or they actually had to write in multiple journals to do accounting. And the other thing that came to mind as you were talking was that you mentioned New Zealand was behind in that piece when they actually created one of the first online SaaS accounting packages for anyone in the world through Xero. So really, really interesting. But I reckon you shorten the story, because there's a lot more to Mary than accountancy and curiosity. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you ventured into, who you are now, Mary, and what you do with your audiences and your customers?
Yeah. So I sat in the accounting space for more than 30 years. And the last 8 years in the accounting world, I worked in mergers and acquisitions, some huge global names, Robert Bosch, PPG Industries, Keynote, male-dominant environments. And I was tasked with melding teams together in one of the mergers that I was involved in. And I didn't have any skill set to do that. I was one of those ball-breaking bitches in finance that it was my way or the highway. I talk a lot about the movie The Devil Wears Prada, and for those who have watched the movie, they look at Miranda Priestly in the movie, and I was worse than her, and I admit it, and my family admits it, and it's true. And so
Have you seen the memes? Have you seen the memes on that, Mary? We're going out at the moment where it's got her resting bitch face, and every time someone asks a question to her, and you know your reaction. So I like that you've mentioned that. It's quite humorous.
Yeah, so I started to retrain in human behaviour to better do my finance career. I've always been a high achiever, suffered with perfectionism for a very long time, and you push yourself to the nth degree when you suffer with perfectionism. And I would say to staff, I never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, and they would say, yeah, but you're superhuman. And that drive to be successful meant that I found there was a gap in human behaviour. So what do you do when you find a gap in business? You educate. So off I went to study human behaviour to better do that finance role. And about 18 months in, I had a personal transformation. I learnt that humans are supposed to be, not do, that we're actually able to feel instead of running on autopilot. I learnt that high stress is not the best environment to make decisions from. I learnt to breathe. I learnt to meditate. I completely transformed who I am from a personal perspective, and that journey is ongoing. I strive at that each and every week, month, year, ongoing. If I find something that triggers me or stresses me in any way, then I walk towards it, not away. So in that retraining in human behaviour, I founded Empower Services because I don't want any one person to live in the old version of me. I don't want anyone on this earth to live in stress, anxiety, a human doing instead of a human being, that every time they tick something off their to-do list, there's 10 or 20 more things added to the bottom, because that's how I live. And it's not the best way to do business. So the people that I help now manage their stress, think differently, humanize themselves, actually become more successful, financially free, and live a greater life than they did before. And like me, they thought they were running success. What success looked like.
Definition, right? It's all in the definition. Look, that's a lovely takeaway story, and I wanted you to explain that to the audience, because at Forge, whilst technology is a really, really important piece of our conversation, we are moving into an exponential age, and I thought mobile was the exponential age. This is a whole different ball game, and I'm a technologist, right? So super intrigued, but also very, very uncertain about what does that look like on the human side? What does that look like in our communities? What does that look like in the way in which we do business with our people? So thank you for sharing. And I know that the people at Forge will get such great insights from you. So they should come up and have a chat and start a conversation, because it'll be well worth their time.
And you highlighted one of the biggest things earlier, which is probably the worst combination in history, which is manual data entry and double data entry. It's probably up there with ham and pineapple pizza, which I'm probably going to get criticized out there, because I reckon
Derek's favourite pizza is ham and pineapple.
There you go. He should stick to manual data entry then. I want to ask you. I'm looking forward to your panel at Forge next week. One of the questions I want to ask, without giving too much away, is what do you want the attendees to walk away with after hearing your insights at the Forge?
Great question. The biggest insight I want people to walk away from is that they can do, be, and have anything they choose. And the way to do it is to change your belief system. If something inside of you is stopping you achieving or being or having something that you believe is possible, that belief system. When I do keynotes, I often start off with who here believed in Santa Claus as a child, and they have a big laugh, and most of the room says they do. And then I talk about my transformation, and I say that the belief part is the transformation part, because we truly did believe in Santa Claus as kids until we found some information, some data out there in the world to tell us that it wasn't true. So if we have a belief system that is blocking us, is holding us back, we need to use data. We need to find something to debunk that belief, and we can never believe it again, and it will be out of our way, and we can achieve anything. I did a keynote one time. There was about 1,000 people in the room, and normally when you do a keynote, there's no Q&A. If it's a summit or something else, there's Q&A. But normally a keynote, there's no Q&A. But somehow the organisers at the end said, wow, this is fantastic. Who's got a couple of questions? And I'm like, no.
Did you freeze?
Anyway, one guy stands up and he says, Mary, you have been very inspirational today. But you know what? Anything is not possible. He said, you can't grow taller. Anyway, luckily my husband works in events, because I did a sideways glance, both sides, and there was a big road case out to the side of the stage. So I rolled the road case into the middle of the stage, and I jumped up on top of it. And I said, sometimes in life we cannot achieve exactly what we want to achieve, but we can utilize something in our environment. And I said, think outside the box, as I stomped the box. You can appear to be taller or larger than life. So even though he tried to debunk me, he actually helped me pull in anybody that I didn't have inspired in that audience.
Love it.
Quick thinking. Good work.
With challenge comes opportunity, right? This is the power. You have seen a lot in your journey. You've read a lot. You're very learned. You spend a lot of time connecting with people and building your human capability set. Is there a single signal that stands out to you in the future that's coming that we need to be looking out for, that you would suggest we need to dial in and look a bit deeper?
So curiosity needs to be at the forefront. If we don't have curiosity, then we don't look at things from different angles. We need to face every moment with curiosity, and we need to ask questions, like hundreds of questions, not just a question here or there. We need to ask hundreds and hundreds of questions about anything. The only stupid question is the one that's never asked. I spoke with Stephen Bartlett recently. He's got a podcast, The Diary of a CEO, and a book, The Diary of a CEO. He was recently here in Melbourne, and I was lucky enough to be able to meet him, front of the line, actually. Anyway, I said, when something is happening over here, and this is if something's happening over here, we're usually distracted from something happening over here. And he said, yes. I said, so if the over here, A, is AI, what's the thing we're being distracted from? He said, great question. He said, my belief is poles rise together. He said, so I believe while AI is rising, technology, then the human capability side is rising at the same time. He said, so if you aren't in technology, you need to get into the human side of things. And then he said, what do? I said, executive coaching and mentoring. He said, perfect. But yeah, so poles rise together. I agree. We need humans to be instructing. I can't say where AI is going to get to in the future. I can say where it is now, and how I utilize it now is that I ask it to help me research. I ask it to help me find fast what to study next. I ask it to help me list out lots of information about a topic that I'm looking at. One of the things that I'm investigating at the moment is near-death experiences and opening up greater usage of your brain. And it would have taken me years to have mapped out, but I used AI to say, what are the areas of learning that I can use in this space.
Oh, look, it's a multi-factor order of magnitude increase on speed to information through intelligent questions. It's proving now that English and your ability to think in different points and different hemispheres, and your ability to join dots and then talk to that in a riff-like state. I said that to someone the other day, Mary. You've got to learn to riff, and they go, riff. I've never heard someone say that before, but it's the truth, right? You riff with the tool, and you get so much more out of it.
With the guitar, yep.
Yeah, as opposed to riffing with an orchestra or a guitar. The other bit that I'm curious about is, do you pay for your subscription? I haven't asked anyone yet.
We use the free a lot, but I do have some paid. So we're playing around at the moment with the videos and the pictures.
Yep.
And that's a paid platform. Yep. But at the moment, with most of the other stuff, we're utilising free platforms. I'm not afraid to pay.
Yeah.
I think...
No, I was just curious because there's a lot of people that use it and probably don't really see the extended benefit of when you actually pay for the service, because you get a lot in the free service, if that makes sense. So, there's a tip for people out there. If you're using it relatively well, then the extension to a paid version is well worth your time. Yeah.
I had a client that asked me to help them write an audit to go into. I won't give away too much because I haven't got their permission. But they wanted me to help them write an audit to go in with their level of expertise into business. And I'm like, it's way out of scope for what we do. And she's like, yeah, but I know you can help me with all your business expertise. And I'm like, why don't you use, the AI tools? And she said, no, I'm not putting my information in. And I said, it's not putting your information in. It's actually getting information out. And she's like, no, I'm not okay with it. And so I said, watch this. So we were on a Zoom. I logged in and asked it a couple of questions and asked it to do exactly what she wanted, an audit for this particular area of this particular space of business. Yeah. And 4-5 seconds, under a minute, she's like, oh my God, that would have taken me months.
Yeah. So that's double, triple, quadruple orders of magnitude, right? When you think about it, that's game changing. And whilst it's going to be incredible for us as humans to be able to leverage resources like this into the future, that's the piece where you talked about the poles rising. That augmentation changes the dynamic of who we are and how we can operate as individuals. So I'm looking forward to this abundant world that comes forward. And on that, it's going to come with some challenges. Do you see anything that stands out in terms of challenges?
Well, of course, the big challenge that people are fearful of at the moment are jobs and what jobs it's going to replace. And I was talking to a girlfriend a little while ago and she was talking about the jobs that had been with manufacturing moving out of Australia and no longer all the factory jobs, and her heritage was Italian, and that was how their parents came over and started in Australia, and she was a lot concerned about the jobs moving out of Australia, and she'd been quite highly strung over it and having discussions with lots of people about how annoyed she was over it. And she came to me and she said, Mary, I really value what you say. You've been very quiet on this. What's your opinion? And I said, so-and-so, which one of your privately educated children do you want to work in the factory?
Yeah.
And she said, this is why I came and asked you the question, because she didn't. She wasn't looking at her children. And I think that people will be fearful about what jobs will be lost, but there's going to be thousands of jobs created. My son talks about, Mum, stop worrying about me. What I'm going to make my millions on hasn't been invented yet. And I cannot argue that fact with him. He's probably right. I don't know, but he probably is right. We don't know what's coming, but I think jobs are going to change. And, we can only think about the jobs right now with the capability of thinking that we have now. So let me give you a true example of this. I thought if I only give my kids one skill, I want them all to learn how to touch type. Because I thought if you can touch type, you can data entry, then you can, that's multi into everything. My kids they do this far faster than I can touch type. Yeah. Like, it's, so I thought that was going to be something that they would need, that would give them a leg up in life. Well, it did me, because I did typing at school.
Yeah.
That was how I got into business as a data entry operator at the age of 15.
Yep.
So that was so we can only think about, even when we're thinking about progress, we can still only think about that progress to the magnitude of what we think. But imagine if we can have the capability of something that we ask it a question, and it not only thinks at the level of our thinking, but it also thinks at the level of all other thinking. Like,
yes.
I'm excited.
I thought when I was young, the thing I should hone in is let's learn how to speak multiple languages. So I learned how to speak 3 languages quite fluently, but that's going to get replaced. I could see it that you can get voice to speech apps and translations of acts and of different languages in real time now. So not even that is a superior quality to have, unfortunately. But that stigma of how AI is going to take your jobs, I really dislike it. I don't know how the media can change it so it's not projecting that that message. But I think it was a podcast that I watched. It's AI won't replace you, but the employee that's using AI tools will.
But the media doesn't want to. Now we're getting out of it, aren't we?
This has gone to a different podcast.
I don't believe the media likes to give evenly weighted information. I think the media likes to use fear to have more people buy its data. I don't think media is a clean place to listen. I believe they sensationalize, they put bits in, they leave bits out to attract a wider audience, because that's how they make their money. We're all business people, and business people want to make money, and they use their environments and their tools to make money. And I don't think that media's focus is really on sharing the truth. I think media's focus is sensationalizing stories and data to attract more audiences to make more money.
Look, and the echo chamber that they create is horrible from that perspective. I mean, you've only got to look at this US elections, and they're just a mass proliferation of media. I'm getting hit in my YouTube feeds and everywhere on information I'm curious about, and probably for the first time in a long time being curious about what can a macro impact look like for me. Maybe that's because I'm getting old, Mary. I don't know. But
we're growing younger.
But there's this piece where it's just this massive, clear falsity that comes with two sides telling a story. And that worries me greatly, in that we can't just tell truths. It's interesting that you say it as well, Courtney, because this is probably the biggest change in my brain through my transition, was from black and white thinking there's one right way and every other way is wrong, to thinking, what if every way is right? But it's just right in a completely different way to what I thought was right. Look, I've always talked to my family about my heavy shades of grey. My heavy shades of grey, and my belief that you need to be thinking outside of your belief systems and outside of what initially your reactions are to a stimulant, and then start to just step out one or two steps removed to look at it from other perspectives, putting a different hat on. It's the old theory of the 7 hats or the 6 hats thinking.
Were they Bono's hats? Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
I do exactly that. I go, this is the story I tell.
Yep.
From my experiences. What other stories can I find?
And Mary, funnily enough, if after going to the wonderful Burning Mind this year and listening to Finbar, who we're hoping to have along to Forge in capacity, he's very busy now, but I think we've grabbed him for 1 or 2 stints. That concept of mashups and linking things together, that in its own right is just a simple way to get the brain brain working and thinking left of field and right and trying to bring things together and homogenize those in different thoughts. It's good for us as humans to think more than in our predefined biases. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I loved how we learned at that day, Burning Mind, how to, you could connect a grape to an old shoe.
Yeah.
And to do it different ways as well. One of the exercises was to do it 5 ways. One of the exercises was to do it 7 ways. One of the exercises was to have a front picture and an end picture. And then another exercise, a front picture, a middle picture, and an end picture.
Yeah.
I love it. I love all of that sort of thing. Anything that stretches my brain. Did I come home brain spent? Yes. That night I said to Derek, I got nothing left. I'm going to veg tonight because I've been pulling my mind in all different places at once.
Yeah.
And I know Forge is even better because we get to spend more time together, and we've got many more minds in the room that think many, many different ways. Back in my corporate career, when I did group work, I came to the group with a predetermined outcome, and I was going to help the group find my way out. And now I know when I'm doing group work, the first thing to do is to surround myself with people that are completely different to me, because now I want to hear. And being a D and a dyslexic, we're problem solvers. So when people would speak in group work, I was trying to solve the problem as they were falling, instead of sitting back. Now in group work, I sit back and I listen to everybody say their piece, because the problem is never the problem. I now understand. And I was trying to solve the problems as we went, instead of letting the whole challenge fall and then using all of our different ways to solve it. Brené Brown talks about an incredible thing. She says, paint it done. What does success look like? And paint it done. And they're two different ways to look at it. And she was at a conference and she said to her people, before tomorrow, can you collate the what do you call them? The reviews, and let's pull out 3 or 4 of the top questions to add value to the room the next day. So at 8:30 in the morning, they shove the review forms under her door, and the conference starts at 9 o'clock. And so then, it was a 4-day conference. So then she gets to that night and she says, okay, let's paint it successful. Let me tell you what success looks like. Success looks like you've gone through the review sheets, you've picked out the top 5, you've collated them for me, and they're under my door by 8:30 tonight, so that I can actually have time to review them to deliver changes to the conference the next day. And so then that's what success looks like. So then one of the workers that she's got working for her says, well, Brené, can I paint it done? And she said, yes. What's the next step? After what does success look like? Paint it done. She says, well, today you spoke to accounting and tomorrow you're speaking to marketing. Will the review questions from the accounting people add value to the marketing people? And she said, no, it won't. Scrap it. You're right. So look at the difference.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a really good analogy and a really good way to frame things, Mary.
Wow.
See, now you've got my brain working. I can't even ask a question off the back of it. I'm trying to absorb that one. Yeah, that's interesting. You know what? On that note, and just I've looked to the left, and it's 29 minutes, Mary. That was a very easy 29 minutes because I was working out, do I ask another question? Because if I do, I'm sure I'm going to get an amazing answer, and I'm not sure how much time I've got left. Anyway, long story short, today has been magnificent.
Questions at Forge. So
we've got so many things that we can rattle in, and so many people we can talk to at Forge, and there's lots of really widespread knowledge coming to the event, which if you don't tap into, if you don't make yourself uncomfortable introducing yourself to 3 or 4 people, if you don't make yourself uncomfortable asking questions that might sound stupid in your head, in your echo chamber, but could mean a lot to somebody else, then you're not coming with abundance in mind, and you probably should just go to a trade show and walk by the 3x3s. So on that note, thank you so much for coming and giving us your time, energy, wisdom, and knowledge today and into Forge. I can't wait to see you on a stage talking to our audience. Thanks, Mary.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks for sharing your insights, Mary. Have a great afternoon.
See you all.